Okay, folks. Second video, we're on page 251 of Bunnet. Alright, so we've been looking a bit at soils. You're going to go to the soil productivity on page 251, and we're just going to do just a bit of highlighting here. There's nothing overly complicated about this, really. Okay, so soil contains all the nutrients that healthy growing plants require. It's said to be fertile. So if a soil contains all those nutrients, it is fertile. Okay, once you take those nutrients away, it becomes infertile. Alright, so let's keep going. The luxuriant tree growth of a tropical rainforest may suggest that the soils of the forest are both fertile and deep. This is not true. Alright, the fallen leaves decompose very quickly and form a leaf litter. The nutrients derived from that are taken up by the trees. Very little enters or remains in the soil. This is an example of recycling, and in a tropical rainforest it is a continuous process. This relates directly back to the homework we just corrected, okay? So what happens is, just because there's lots of vegetation somewhere, okay, does not necessarily mean the soil is healthy. Now we're going to look at some of the types of agriculture and farming, where yes, we grow lots of crops. You're like, oh, there must be really good soil. But actually, the soil is almost exhausted because the plants take all the nutrients to grow, we cut down the plants, take them away to make food, and the soil is left behind. We come back, grow more crops, all the time taking these nutrients away. Alright? When a natural forest is burnt, some of the nutrients of the trees remain in the wood, okay, and go back into the soil. So a lot of forest fires are actually natural. Okay, they're not all caused by people. Alright? The cultivation of crops in burnt over forest soils, okay, soon removes all the nutrients. Now I've added one little note here, slash and burn farming. So this last little bit is sometimes called slash and burn farming. Okay, it's a method where you chop everything down, you burn it all, and the ash returns to the soil to give it nutrients, and then you have a couple of years you can grow stuff on that soil. Alright, let's move on to page 252. Okay, top page 252. Okay, so this big bit here is another definition. All of this is about our shifting cultivators or shifting cultivation. Okay, so growing crops continuously removes most of the nutrients, and since the crops are removed from the land, when they're harvested, the nutrients which they contain are never returned to the soil. So like I said, just because you see a big farm with loads of crops does not mean the soil is very healthy. Alright, we take up the crops, take up a lot of nutrients from the soil to grow, and then we take the crops away. So we're breaking up that natural cycle. Right? The soil loses its fertility, and in tropical regions becomes dead after just a few years. Right, this is why farmers in tropical forests who burn the trees so that they can grow crops, they then move on after a few years to another part of the forest, right, which they then burn so they can grow more crops. They're called shifting cultivators. Shifting is means to move. So they move to a place, they cultivate it, they grow crops. It only lasts a couple of years. They move somewhere else, burn it down, grow crops, lasts a couple of years, move somewhere else. Okay, so that's shifting cultivators. Then moving down the page as we go. Alright, there's another thing here. I should have put this as one of our keywords. Okay, fallow. So cropland that is left fallow. What that means, we have a definition here, that is unused for 3 or 4 years to allow the nutrients to come back. So if you leave an area fallow, you're trying to return those nutrients to the soil. Alright, give it a chance to kind of regroup. Enable farmers to cultivate the same piece of land by rotating their crops. So what this meant was, when they realized that the shifting cultivation was a bad idea, they came up with this, and I was like, okay, what we can do is grow crops for a year or two here, then we leave it blank, okay, and then we can move on. We'll come back to it in a few years once it's restored. This also didn't work, so now they've gone on to this rotating, crop rotation, which is a key word you've written down. So the idea was, one year grow wheat, next year grow something else, the year after that grow something else, then come back to wheat, because various vegetation takes up different nutrients. So if they kept mixing it up, that would use different nutrients from the soil and not always the same stuff. Alright, so we're going to move down page 252 here. Okay, so in more recent years, artificial fertilizers containing various nutrients have been used or manufactured and used extensively in farming. What we're trying to say here is agriculture is the biggest problem really for soil erosion. I'm going to show you a case study from America from nearly 100 years ago now, but it's still one of the most famous ones that made a lot of people very poor. Okay, so farming is one of the biggest causes of soil erosion. think back to our desertification diagram. There was one piece of evidence from climate change, okay, whereas the other one had three different. If we look, I have the sheet here, okay, if we look back at it, population growth, okay, it leads to overgrazing, overcultivation and deforestation, all for more food and energy. So farming is the big cause of soil erosion and desertification. All right, we've tried different things: shifting cultivation, leaving areas fallow, rotating crops. Now we're on to these artificial fertilizers, and we'll see later that they're not very good either. Okay. Now, soil erosion. I just put down breakdown of soil, but we should know that already. All right. Some soil erosion is natural. Okay, some of it happens naturally, but by far, all right, and let's go up to the top of the page again. By far, the largest amount of soil erosion has resulted from bad farming practices. Okay, also destruction of forests and mining for minerals. All of these are human processes, but farming and cutting down trees, they're the big ones. Okay, now I know we're probably sick of hearing about cutting down trees, but the thing is, if the soil goes away, our ability to grow food goes away and everybody starves. Okay, so it's actually a very, very important topic. So long as the vegetation cover remains, there can be little, if any, erosion, because the roots of the plants hold the soil together. So as long as natural vegetation occurs, soil erosion is going to be slowed down dramatically. Unfortunately, we try and remove as much vegetation as possible, it seems. Next thing, this is important. Soil erosion, okay, is affected by water and wind. That's the two main things. So that's what we want to look at now. Alright, I'm just going to move this slightly and do that. So first thing, by water, we got sheet erosion. First of all, affects large areas. Occurs when rain falls on a gentle slope with little vegetation. Removes all the soil across an area, a uniform depth, so it takes the same amount of soil as everywhere. Okay, so that's sheet erosion. Let's compare that to gully erosion. Okay, remember gullies from the desert topic. There's a picture on the next page, 253, which shows you what a gully looks like. Okay, but they're just these deep channels that are kind of no good for anything. So compare this to sheet erosion above. Localized. Okay, sheet erosion above affects a large area. This affects smaller areas. Occurs during heavy rainfall. Sheet erosion, gentle or a small amount of rainfall. This rushes down a steep slope, cutting deep grooves into the land. The sheet erosion occurred on a gentle slope. Gullies occur on a steep slope. They erode downwards and remove loads of soil away. Okay, so steeper slope, heavier rain, bigger amount of erosion. Alright, I'm going to skip on to page 253 quickly to cover the bit about wind, and then we're almost finished. Okay, so again, by wind, very simple. Regions now which have low rainfall or a definite dry season are liable to have their soils reduced to dust and blown away. Okay, so this is very similar to desertification. So in areas that have definite dry seasons, if there's a drought, if there's no rain, the soil turns to dust and it's blown away, it's removed. Okay, so in grasslands where the grass has again been replaced by crops such as wheat, or which have been overgrazed by cattle. So again, it happens in these grasslands, just like we talked about the Sahel region, okay, near the Sahara Desert. So that's what happens with wind erosion. That's all it is. Droughts, removal of vegetation, the soil is blown away. It's that simple. Next of all, the last little bit, the danger of too much artificial. Artificial means man-made, so it's not natural. We know what humus is. Humus is the organic matter derived from the dead plants and animal tissue. Okay, it contains, all right, valuable nutrients, and it helps to maintain soil, so it's good for soil. All right, if the humus is removed, the soil breaks down. That's all it is. Now what we do is we don't care about this humus layer. We want to grow lots of crops really quick, so artificial fertilizers do not contain humus, but we use them anyway. They use loads of different chemicals. If the organic fertilizer, the humus, are not used in crop farming, the continual use of artificial, man-made fertilizers will lead to widespread soil erosion. Okay, so we're not using the natural process anymore. We're just upsetting that, by using these fertilizers, and that will also eventually break down the soil to dust and it can get blown away. All right.